Allison, here's a look at what's going on this week in the news. We begin with news from the Vatican. On Sunday at the Angelus, Pope Francis prayed for the victims of Hurricane Harvey as well as the victims of intense rains in South Asia. Harvey has claimed at least 44 lives and has left tens of thousands displaced. Some experts are estimating total losses from Harvey could reach about $190 billion, which would be equal to Hurricanes Katrina and Sandy's total combined costs. As of Sunday in South Asia, there have been at least 1,400 people killed from the intense rains and monsoons, and millions of people have been displaced in India, Nepal, and Bangladesh. More news from the Vatican. Pope Francis heads to Colombia this week for his first visit to that country as pontiff. The Pope will be doing some traveling around the country, making stops at significant places. Rome Reports breaks down the Pope's itinerary for the trip.
The last time Pope Francis visited Colombia was when he was still a cardinal 6 years ago to participate in a priestly encounter. On Wednesday, he will return to the country dressed in white with a mission at hand to promote peace. The Pope wants to take the first step in a very important process, reconciliation, to be promoters of peace, builders of peace, promoters of life and human dignity. The 5-day trip from September 6th through the 11th is divided into 4 stages. The first in the capital, Bogotá. There he will speak before the civil and ecclesiastical authorities. He will also have a meeting with the bishops who represent every part of Latin America. It's not a trip that only has repercussions for Colombia, because nowadays Colombia is the geopolitical epicenter of Latin America. The second stage will be in the city, which is the symbol of the armed conflict in the country, Villavicencio. It's the door to the Amazon and one of the regions most affected by the war on drug trafficking. This place was chosen to host a liturgical prayer service for the reconciliation of the country, with victims of violence and ex-guerrillas present. We all expected him to go to Choco because of their difficult conditions, but with the climate, they closed the airport very easily, and then there's no way out. They chose Villavicencio for 2 reasons. It's the capital of a department that suffered intense violence on the part of the FARC, the paramilitaries, and the state. Also because it's the gateway to the Amazon. The third stage, however, will be Medellin. There he will visit one of the social work symbols in the region, Hogar San Jose. It's an almost 100-year-old orphanage started by a missionary and now sustained largely by citizens themselves. The last stop will be in Cartagena, where Pope Francis will visit one of the poorest neighborhoods in the city. He will pray before the tomb of St. Peter Claver, a missionary defender of the rights of indigenous people. Before departing, the Pope will also celebrate Mass.
The Pope sent a video message to the people of Colombia before his visit. In the message, the Pope explains that peace is what Colombia has needed for a long time, and it is working to achieve it. The Pope said he was honored to visit a land rich in history, culture, and faith. In news now from around the country, coming up this weekend on September 9th, the second day of prayer for peace in our communities will be observed in dioceses across the country. The day is being observed on the feast day of St. Peter Claver. In a statement, Bishop George Murray of Youngstown, Ohio, chairman of the U.S. Bishops' Ad Hoc Committee Against Racism, said that St. Peter Claver is a model for us in understanding that hard work and perseverance is required to combat the sin of racism and build community. St. Peter Claver was a Jesuit who dedicated his life to ministering to people enslaved by the African slave trade. He worked to improve their lives and sought to abolish the slave trade. For the observance of the day, the USCCB is offering resources, including prayer cards, prayers of the faithful, stories of how faith communities in the U.S. are working for racial justice, teaching resources, and bishops' statements. You can visit usccb.org/racism for more information. We go back to the Vatican now. At the end of last week, Pope Francis met at the Vatican with the new ambassador to Mexico. Rome Reports has more on this friendly and casual visit.
The Pope met with the new ambassador of Mexico, Jaime de la Renal, in the Vatican. During the ceremony, the ambassador recalled the day of prayer for the care of creation in front of the Pope. It was a cordial and relaxed meeting. First, the ambassador introduced the Pope to his family. Then Pope Francis met all diplomats and embassy personnel, but still made time to joke with the little ones present. During the private meeting, the ambassador, who's worked as a professor at several universities, gave him a book on authority and power. The Pope greatly appreciated the gift.
And finally in the news, excerpts from a new, soon-to-be-released book-length interview with Pope Francis have been appearing online, and Catholic News Service has obtained an advance copy of the book. The 417-page book called Politics and Society is based on a series of interviews with Dominique Walton, a 70-year-old French sociologist and expert in media and political communication. And during the interviews, the Pope upholds traditional marriage, saying that by virtue of its very definition, marriage can only be between a man and a woman. The Pope said that when it comes to the nature of marriage, as well as gender, there is critical confusion at the moment. He said teaching children that they can choose their gender also plays a part in fostering such mistakes about the truth or facts of nature. In the book, Pope Francis also said his decision to give all priests permanent permission to grant absolution to those who confess to having procured an abortion was not meant to trivialize this serious and grave sin. Abortion continues to be murder of an innocent person, he said, but if there is sin, forgiveness must be facilitated. Among some of the other topics the Pope addresses in the book are the role of women in the Church, the threat of money in the world, and the temptation of the Church to emphasize what is prohibited. The book is scheduled to be released September 6th. Well, that is all the information we have for you at this time. I'm Kevin Nelson. Don't forget, you can keep up to date on Catholic news throughout the week with Catholic Newsbreak right here on the Catholic TV network.